Don't call yourself an army if you don't know this. In unexpected seconds and without any announcement, the stage turned silent. The lights went out. There was no background music. And then, in the midst of silence from thousands of spectators, Jungkook stood alone, with no accompaniment, no choreography, just himself and a microphone. No one could prepare for what happened next, not even the BTS members themselves. As Jungkook's voice began to flow, it wasn't just the audience who froze. Jin halted. Taehyung stiffened. All eyes were fixed, but no one truly knew how to react. What exactly did Jungkook express that night through his deeply personal song, making Jin bow his head in disbelief and Taehyung seemingly freeze his emotions? Among lyrics containing apologies, gratitude, and unspoken wounds, Jungkook replayed BTS's emotional history before the public. And this time, it wasn't about a perfect performance, but a raw confession from a younger brother to his older brothers. The song wasn't an old release, nor was it new. It resembled an open letter turned into melody. In his lyrics, Jungkook mentioned times when he felt lost, when he realized how much Jin and Taehyung shaped him as a person, not just as an idol. When he sang, "I look back and you're there, still standing, even when I walked away," many fans believed it was directed at Jin, the eldest brother known for his calm, yet firm nature. Jin, usually able to maintain composure in any situation, appeared unprepared to face the deep meaning of each line. His eyes reddened. His hand gripped the microphone tightly as a sign of self-control. But all of that crumbled when Jungkook voiced the line, "Sorry I was too quiet when you needed to hear me." Jin's silence after that sentence spoke louder than the cheers and marked the breaking of the emotional wall he had long held. Meanwhile, Taehyung didn't react with tears. No dramatic expressions. But that's precisely what made his response shake the room. His face froze, his eyes focused solely on Jungkook, unblinking, as if reading every word as a message only the two of them understood. Those familiar with Jungkook and Taehyung's dynamic, often close yet filled with tension, admitted to sensing the weight of restrained emotion. In an industry demanding spontaneous expression and perfectly choreographed stages, Taehyung's blank stare was the most honest statement of the night. The public knows that relationships among BTS members haven't always been smooth, and this is what made Jungkook's performance feel so raw and human. In one unplanned moment, Jungkook stripped away all idol defenses and placed himself as a young man finally learning to appreciate the past and the people who shaped him. The climax came when the lights went out just after the final verse. There were no screams.
No applause.
Just silence. And in that silence, Jin stood and walked toward Jungkook. Not with a smile. Not with a performance gesture. He just hugged him. Not a hug for comfort, but one full of weight. Apology, acceptance, and brotherhood. Seconds later, Taehyung stood from his seat, walked without expression, and stood beside them. He said nothing, but merely standing there made the moment unforgettable. A backstage crew member revealed that even the technicians held their breath during the performance. Usually, we're busy chasing light and audio cues. But that time, everyone froze. No one wanted to disrupt what was happening. It felt like watching something not meant for the public, but a moment leaked from their private space. Media and fans couldn't hide their shock. Reactions to the performance flooded discussion forums and social media with speculation. Was this Jungkook's way of apologizing for past dynamics? Had Jin and Taehyung long carried wounds that were just now touched? Or was this the beginning of a new BTS narrative, more open to internal healing? What's clear is that this moment opened many eyes, that behind global fame and superstar packaging lies a relationship filled with color, conflict, tension, and healing. Jungkook didn't just perform that night. He became the emotional narrator of a journey often only known to those in the group's innermost circle. To this day, there's no official explanation of the song's meaning or the embrace. And perhaps none is needed. Because what matters most is not clarification, but the courage to present honesty in a space usually filled with perfect aesthetics. Jungkook broke the silence, and in that silence, Jin and Taehyung, without a word, left everyone speechless. As the public was shaken by Jungkook's emotional performance and the deep reactions of Jin and Taehyung, one fundamental question began to emerge. Did all of this truly happen? Or are we, as the audience, caught in a narrative carefully crafted to create emotional impact? Amid the flood of praise and fans' tears, space must be made for skepticism, an essential stance in an era where information is easily manipulated. Are we witnessing the highest form of sincere emotional expression on stage, or are we consuming a script skillfully designed? Isn't it curious that there's no official agency documentation, no press release, and no high-resolution video clearly showing the moment of the hug? Some viral clips come from unofficial sources, circulating on TikTok without clarity on location or date. Twitter is flooded with emotional fan reactions, yet few provide solid evidence. If so, how can we ensure that this moment isn't just a socially constructed illusion driven by mass emotion? We must ask, why is such an event so easily accepted as truth by the public? Is it because the public has long yearned for dramatic stories from their idols? Or because such stories offer collective catharsis for a fanbase long excluded from BTS's internal dynamics? This demands deeper reflection. How far do we, as viewers, participate in shaping the pseudo-reality we consume daily? It must be noted that information used to construct this narrative came from various digital platforms, ranging from 20-second TikTok clips, loosely translated tweets, to visual YouTube analyses that are often more speculative than informative. None of these sources can be empirically verified. This raises a big question. Are we trapped in an information ecosystem that toys with our emotions? Furthermore, why do moments like this appear without official announcements and seem so spontaneous? Isn't the Korean entertainment industry, especially major agencies like BTS's, known for strict control over public narratives? How could such a major event escape editing and official distribution? Or is the lack of confirmation part of the strategy, leaving a gap of ambiguity for the fanbase to fill with their own interpretation and emotion? These questions are not meant to doubt Jungkook's sincerity or belittle the meaning of the hug between Jin and Jungkook. But in the digital age, we can no longer separate performance from reality, or at least from what's presented as reality. Narrative and truth have merged, and anyone seeking to understand such events clearly must position themselves as a skeptic observer, not just a swept-away consumer. Some fans may ask, why shouldn't we believe emotions that feel real? The answer isn't that we reject sincerity, but that even sincerity can be staged, especially in an industry where personal narratives are the strongest tool for staying relevant. Isn't every tear on stage potentially an emotional investment with long-term payoff? Was the hug between Jin and Jungkook a real symbol of reconciliation? Or was it a symbol meant to revive emotional bonds between BTS and fans, especially after the long break due to military service? We don't have a definitive answer, and this is where reflective awareness becomes vital. Thus, we invite you, dear readers, to pause and ask, what does this information truly mean to you? Do you feel emotionally closer to the BTS members after reading or watching these clips? If yes, is that closeness built on reality, or merely perception shaped by unverified information flows? Some viewers are even comparing this performance to similar emotional moments from other artists. They ask, why do personal moments always appear when public interest wanes? Is that coincidence or strategy? Are we witnessing rare honesty, or a well-structured scenario designed to steer public opinion? In facing these questions, one thing must be preserved: awareness. We have the right to be moved, to feel the depth of the moment, but we also carry the responsibility not to let emotions override reason. We must love our idols without losing our critical thinking. Ultimately, all of this boils down to one question you must answer for yourself. Do you truly believe what you witnessed was a real, unmanipulated moment? Or are you beginning to realize that much of what we consume today is a collective construction of emotion, assumption, and the need for touching stories? We are not here to conclude. We are here to spark awareness. Please continue to love, continue to follow, but never stop asking questions.